Welcome to the show. My guest today is somebody I've really been looking forward to having on, especially, I've never had, of all the interviews, I've never had a professional handicapper that does what I do. And we know what it takes to produce selections and analysis. And you even do the line, for the New York racing, for all the New York races. So, welcome to the show, David. It's really a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. Excited to do this.
The first thing I'd be remiss not to touch on this because yesterday I watched the whole Fox show of Aqueduct.
Hmm.
And, you know, Aqueduct, I grew up in Manhattan. So obviously I would take the train many, many, many times, the special, then the A train,
Hmm.
to the big A. And really, that's the track I made my bones. That is, I have too many stories to tell, too many characters that I met along the way. And actually, when the last race went off, I actually felt extremely sad. Like
Yep.
I don't know how to make an analogy, but it's almost like I lost a friend. I
Hmm.
mean, it felt because I was going there in the mid 60s, early 60s. So I was seeing, Arts and Letters and Damascus and Buck Passer, Braulio Baeza, Johnny Rotz. I mean, that far back. I was really sad when that
Yeah.
last race went off. How did you feel?
Yeah, well, I was there yesterday. You could probably tell from my appearance. I got some sun and a bright aqueduct apron yesterday, but yeah, I was there for the whole day. Got there early in the morning to just like take the entire day in, and it was interesting because you're right. The last race, the end of the day, it was sad. I as the horses kind of walked over and the crowd just went wild for like the horses getting saddled and coming on the track. Like I welled up a little bit because you're kind of coming to terms with the moment that it was going to be the last time. And I obviously don't have the same history that you do with Aqueduct. I mean, I did go there as a kid. I mean, that was 1999, my first trip there. So it's only been, what, like 27 years that I've been going to Aqueduct. But, I spent a lot of time there over the years. And the just coming to terms with it being the last, it always is a little emotional. But I'll say leading up to that, it was just a great day of racing. I mean, I think you could probably sense it on TV. I saw some of the Naira coverage, and I mean, I think Maggie went out in the crowd a few times and just captured the energy. I mean, you felt that all day. Not only were people excited to be there and happy and just celebrating the times that they had at Aqueduct and the reasons that they got into racing, but there were all different types of people there. I mean, young and old, and I was so struck by how many young people there were. I mean, there were obviously some content creators there to just document the last time at Aqueduct, even if they weren't horse racing people. They were just there to document the experience. But I mean, I ran into plenty of people that just didn't come to the track ever really and were just there because they heard about it. It was going to be a historic moment, so they wanted to be there. But you had the Aqueduct regulars as well. I mean, just running the gamut of different people from various walks of life. I mean, I was struck like nearing the end of the day, like if only you could like bottle this energy or this reason why all these people came together to the racetrack on this one day and just conjure it up, a few more days throughout the year, we'd actually have something to work with. But sadly, like you can only kind of get this when people realize that it's going away. So I was, those emotions were kind of going through me throughout the day, and it all kind of boiled to a head when the final race went off. But I was one. I waited until a lot of people left. I kind of walked around the building when it really emptied out. Took some pictures at the end of the day, just to kind of enjoy it. But yeah, it was definitely an emotional day.
You know, I remember a large crowd. Obviously, there was a lot more people for the first Breeders' Cup that I went
Hmm.
to there, and then some Wood Memorial Days. There
Hmm.
were some big crowds,
Yep.
but I haven't seen a crowd
No.
like that. God knows how many years, and I have to say that what happened yesterday is the same feeling as when the New York Knicks won the championship. And what I mean by that is New York City gets such a bad rap around the
Mm.
country. And the beauty about being a New Yorker, and I'm a New Yorker through and through, even though I don't live there now, you can't take it away from me. And I grew up on the streets, and I grew up around all types of people. And when the Knicks won the championship, people were hugging, no matter your race,
Mm-hmm.
who you were, what anything about just the melting pot of society was in that crowd when the Knicks were, on TV,
Mm-hmm.
whether it was at 34th Street, Lower Manhattan, different boroughs. You saw that even clearer at Aqueduct yesterday.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's why New York City, when there's a lot of hell we go through in New York.
Yep.
To have the pleasure of what we experienced yesterday and when the Knicks won is, like you said, I wish I can bottle it up and open the bottle 30 times a year.
Yeah.
It would be like the nicest fine wine that you would drink.
Yeah.
And I recognize 4 Rastafarians that I would hang out at Aqueduct. And those 4 actually go back many years with me. And I mentioned on my show about my farewell to Aqueduct that these guys were the guys that Christophe Clement loved. When Clement had a horse that was live, he would come out to the paddock, and they used to be a little by the side of the first floor was like Jamaican pies, oxtail soup, whatever, he would actually go over and signal the horse was live because he loved the Rastos.
Yeah.
And I saw them yesterday on TV.
They're always there.
I got out of my seat and I just kind of went like that, a salute to them.
People that criticize Aqueduct as being some sort of dump obviously don't go there or haven't been there, because yes, you have all different types of people there, people that you wouldn't normally see at Saratoga, but the energy that the crowd would bring just on a daily basis. I mean, you could go there any day of the week and it would be so much more lively than a lot of other tracks you could go to. The energy was great. So when I say that there was fantastic energy on the final day, I mean, it was even ratcheted up from what it usually is at Aqueduct, which is typically a great environment. So, I mean, I've enjoyed Aqueduct in my time there. I know it's not everyone's racetrack experience, but I always had a great time there, even just sitting down and people watching. I mean, there are a few better racetracks for that than Aqueduct. I'm definitely going to miss that part of it.
And a great paddock.
Yeah.
I love the paddock. You're right there. Even, when I have horses running that I own, I love being down there. I love watching the replay with all everybody's scuttle, kind of congregated in a small area.
Oh yeah. Especially in the winter time.
You got the guy that's letting you down the stairs, the owners who's been there 40 years. You see people that have been there for years and years and years, the valets, the people that clean the litter, they're just part of the tapestry of New York racing.
Yeah.
What are some fond memories that you have of Aqueduct being taken there? I presume that, so you went there 1999, you said?
Yeah, so I grew up in northern New Jersey. So I typically went to the New Jersey tracks when I was a kid. I mean, we were not that far from the Meadowlands, so anytime I wanted to see racing, we'd always go to the fall meet at the Meadowlands, and we would just go there for simulcasting. I mean, when I say my dad and I, he would take me to the races, sometimes with his brother, my uncle, who was also into racing. So we would typically go to the New Jersey tracks, and in the summertime we would go down to Monmouth. But Belmont Park was the one New York track that we would go to growing up. And I went when I first started showing interest in racing as a kid in the mid to late 90s. My dad would take me to the big racing in the fall at Belmont Park, or some of the big stakes races before Saratoga. Obviously the Belmont Stakes we started going to. So we would always go to Belmont Park. I was very familiar with that. I had been there a number of times by the time we got to the late 90s, but we had never gone to Aqueduct. And I was writing about this on Twitter or X the other day when I was posting my first ever Aqueduct program, which I still have. And I was
Where is that? Do you have that at hand?
It's in the other room. I could get it later, but I posted some screenshots of it on Twitter if people want to look at my feed from last week.
Your first program.
my first ever program from Aqueduct. But we went there because, like we often do, we went to some of the big stakes cards in the fall at Belmont, and we saw the Champagne Stakes that year. And as like a young kid getting into racing, I just loved a deep closer, like a horse that would drop way off the pace and pass everybody. I thought that was the most exciting type of running style. I would just latch on to any horse that would make that big run from the back of the pack. And we saw Greenwood Lake for Nick Zito win the Champagne with a big late run from like, he dropped like 20 lengths behind early. He was like 10 lengths behind the second to last horse down the backstretch. And you can't even see him on the feed when you watch the video now, but I remember seeing it in person and just being like, oh my God, this horse is so far back, he could never win the race. And he just one by one starts picking horses off and passes everybody and wins going away. So immediately I was like, this is my new favorite horse. I have to see this horse again. So it was the day after my birthday, November 27th, that I was like, Dad, can we just go out to Aqueduct? This horse is running in the Remsen. Like, let's just go for the first time. I know you
How
haven't
old
been in a
were
long-
you? How old were you?
I would have just turned 13.
Okay.
So I begged him to go. He was like, all right, well, it's a big stakes card. I guess we'll go. It was Cigar Mile Day. They're running the Remsen. So we went out there. It was a rainy day. The track was wet. But we saw some good racing. I didn't even remember we saw the debut of Left Bank that day, who went on to win the Whitney. I was looking through the races and remembering some of the horses that I wouldn't even have recollected I saw on that occasion. But we saw the Remsen. Greenwood Lake won the race. It was close. He just barely got up on the wire. That would prove to be his last win. He was a horse that never panned out as a 3-year-old and was prematurely retired. No, it was cool to see that. We saw Affirmed Success win the Cigar Mile that day. So that was my first memory. I remember the Remsen vividly because that was the race I wanted to see. The rest of the day is kind of fuzzy in my memory. But that was the first time we went. We didn't go back for a couple of years after that. I think the next time I went was the 2001 Wood Memorial, where I saw Congaree beat Monarchos, who, of course, went on to win the Kentucky Derby, and they were arguably the two best horses in the Derby that year, with Congaree being part of that fast pace. So I remember that one. And then we didn't go regularly until like the early 2010s. We started to go a little more often. I saw a lot of Wood Memorials from that point on. And then obviously, once I started working in racing and I got hired by the Racing Forum, initially my boss at the time wanted me to go out to the track a lot more often and work out of the press box there. So back in like 2018, 2019, I would go to Aqueduct pretty regularly. I would, go up to the press box, do my handicapping there. I mean, really only Dave Grenning or sometimes Bobby Halt would be up there and nobody else. I mean, that press box was pretty much empty by then. But that was kind of like my real introduction to Aqueduct, because you got to experience the other side of it and, go out on the track, see the winner's circle, the paddock, parts of the track I had never experienced before. So that was really cool. And that's sort of when I became more intimate with the setting. But since then, I've really fallen in love with it. I've, gone back, I try to make it, a few times every year. It's definitely sad to let it go.
So this leads me to my next question. Did you ever meet he was my childhood friend. I mean, we grew up as children together. Dave Litfin.
I never met him in person. No,
Okay,
I mean, obviously I followed his work, but I never met him.
Okay. So he must have, he was at the press box every day, but he got sick, around that time. But he was a great handicapper for the Daily Racing Form. And he wrote a couple really good books. When you were trying to learn the game, did you learn it by also reading books?
I did. So I obviously started learning the game from my dad, who would take me to the races and kind of teach me how to handicap. But my dad was somebody who was very curious and about different handicapping methods. So he had a very small library of handicapping books that I obviously read, cover to cover. When I was a kid, he had Tom Ainsley's Guide to Handicapping. I read that one. I know it was kind of outdated by the time that I was reading it. I think it takes place in the mid 60s, but a lot of the principles still applied at the time.
Fantastic writing. Writing.
I loved it. I mean, laying out the past performances of the horses.
Tremendous. I have every book of his right
Yeah,
in
and then
my
showing the
office.
results and how to get there, and like
Tremendous.
the way he lays it out, he makes it seem so easy. Like, oh, this is how the race is supposed to go, and lo and behold, this is the result that I predicted. And he makes it seem like it's an easy game to beat. Obviously, it's not. But I mean, you learn to kind of tell those stories about the races in your head and think about them as you try to predict the outcome. So that was really helpful. My dad had a couple Andy Beyer books that I perused. I read My $50,000 Year at the Races, which was a very entertaining read. I would highly recommend that one to anybody trying to get into Beyer's books. Yeah, a little bit of those. He had some, photo books just about the history of racing. So I got to familiarize myself with some of the great horses from the past. That, and also my dad had this VHS library where he had videotaped a lot of racing off TV. So I got to kind of go through all those from like going back to the early 80s, so like a lot of the Derbies, Belmonts, Breeders. He had taped every Breeders' Cup broadcast from the first one right up until like the mid 90s. So I would watch, some kids would wake up in the morning and watch cartoons. I would wake up in the morning and pop in one of those VHS tapes and watch the Breeders' Cup from like 10 years ago. So I learned through that. So when I first started going to the racetrack more regularly with him, I kind of, that curiosity had been sparked already. So I kind of had some base knowledge of things, but I still had a lot to learn. And I remember really learning a lot more about handicapping when we went to Saratoga in the summer, and they would take me to those seminars, I think that were later run by Daily Racing Form at Ciro's, where Harvey Pack would host, and he would have on a variety of guests. I think he would have Dave Lipton on. I remember seeing him there. He would have on, obviously, Andy Serling, Paul Kornman back in the day, just tons of great handicappers. And I remember just going there being agog, just taking notes about different ways to view races. Somebody like Andy Serling or Paul Kornman, who was really into trip handicapping, they would, basically say, this is a race you got to go watch. I would head right on over to the replay center at Saratoga after that when we got to the track and just line up and watch the replays that they told me to watch so I could try to see what they saw. So I kind of use those opportunities to learn some of the basics of especially trip handicapping and learning how to do that. It was harder back in the day because they didn't have tools like Formulator. We could pull up the replays as easily. But later on, once we were able to get access to that kind of thing and more of the comprehensive tools from DRF, then I really kind of did a deep dive into it and tried to come up with my own observations about how to do things. So, but the foundation, all of that, I did learn through books and those early experiences going up to Saratoga.
You mentioned Paul Kornman. I mean, all those guys I obviously knew very well.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a guest on some of those shows and knew these guys from back in the 80s.
Yep.
And, Paul, he had his 1-year anniversary of his death a couple days
Mm-hmm.
ago. And we met at Aqueduct for like all his friends, right, and family. And his best friend brought a lot of memorabilia from
Mm-hmm.
his life. And, he was a great, I don't know if you remember, but not only was he the greatest trip handicapper, especially on the grass, that I've ever, he was the guy that was the trip handicapper that like was the professor, the guy, the person we all learned something from,
Mm-hmm.
the concepts. He was ahead of his time. But, he was also a fantastic claiming owner.
Mm-hmm.
He claimed Win, Sally Bailey, train Win, exclusive partner, a few other horses that were really good. So when we were at Aqueduct in the Equestris upstairs,
Mm-hmm.
His best friend brought all the memorabilia, pictures, trophies, and it was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I wanted that I have? The only thing I wanted was his trip notebooks.
Of course. Try to learn the secrets.
I actually have like 2 years of his notebooks.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome.
And it's awesome to just read.
Mm-hmm.
What he would do is he would write every horse in the race, one after another
Mm-hmm.
to the left, and then write his notes next to the name of the horse.
Mm-hmm.
And he had abbreviations. He didn't, he had these, so like he can have a whole trip, like 4 different things on one line based on
Mhm.
his hieroglyphics,
Yep.
which he actually, taught me a little bit about what those symbols meant.
Mhm.
But I have to say, David, guys like him, Andy Beyer, Stephen Davidowitz, Tom Ainsley, Mark Kramer, to name a few. The one thing that bothers me more than anything in this game is that the National Racing Hall of Fame should have a special area to honor those people. Dave
Mhm.
Litfin, just something, because think about the impact they had
Yep.
on people like you
Mhm.
and many, many, many others, and how much money has been bet on what these people have. Take Andy Beyer's speed figures,
Mhm.
like
Yep.
how influential and how you make decisions basically as an aid to your handicapping,
Mhm.
but the influence that they have, so much that they've given people,
Yep.
young people that have grown up, young and old, middle aged. I think it's a sham that they're not recognized.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, and I do. I appreciate what the NTRA does with recognizing the horse player of the year. Obviously, that's always the winner of the NHC, and I appreciate that. And I don't want to denigrate, that person being designated the horse player of the year at all. I think it's great to recognize horse players at all. But I totally hear what you're saying, that there, you could talk to anybody who plays the game at a serious level, and they'll reference those people as being influential in how they view racing or how they learn to handicap. And I agree. I mean, there should be some recognition of that. I
And
mean, not just somebody like Andy Beyer, who obviously wrote books and has the documented history of putting content out there that people can consume, but yeah, just a lot of people that were in the media world that you're right. I think there should be some means to recognizing them. I would even throw in some journalists.
of course,
At the Eclipse Awards every year, I think we honor like the story of the year or the person who wrote the best story. But I mean, I would love to see more, lifetime achievement, and don't, not waiting until people pass away, but just recognizing the work that someone has put in diligently year after year after year, whether even if they didn't write the best story of the year, I think somebody like Dave Grenning deserves a little more recognition than he gets for being that person that's at the track every single day and getting the stories the other people in the industry don't get. I'd love to see guys like that get more, and women like that get more recognition.
just imagine like you taking your kid
Mm-hmm.
to the Hall of Fame, and you come across this little area, and there's an honoring these people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And your son or your daughter says to you, who is that? And you
Yep.
see, say, Andy Beyer's book, Picking
Mm-hmm.
Winners, and you explain this is like one of the first books you should read,
Yep.
right? And like, really, Dad, I'm reading Cat in the Hat, I'm reading, Miss Mary, whatever it is. I want to try and read this book. So you carry the legend of these people forever.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a way of recognizing and bridging the gap of like, where's the future of this game? How do you
Mm-hmm.
get people to understand the history, or how to play horses? Like, what do you
Mm-hmm.
do when you get to the track? You got to learn something. You got to
Yep.
learn from somewhere. Oh, Dad, that book seems good. Let's go buy it. You're
Mm-hmm.
13 years old. You're the 13-year-old kid that says, Dad, was that book something that was good,
Mm-hmm.
influential? Yes,
Yep.
son, read this. And it
Mm-hmm.
says Picking Winner. And then there's a little something about a little plaque of Andy Beyer, or like, it's just, you can recognize horses, you recognize owners, you recognize breeders.
Mm-hmm.
It's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah. Yeah,
You know,
and I know some will debate this, but horse players are the backbone of the sport as much as those that are involved on the ownership and training and jockey side are. I mean, horse racing wouldn't be around without gambling, and that's just the fact
uh,
of the matter.
you take the gambler out of the game, there's no game.
Mm-hmm.
There's no breeding. There's no racing. There's nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We fuel the engine. We're the engine,
Mm-hmm.
the betters. And we're never, and that's the problem, is that we're the betters, and I include myself as a better and you as a better. We're second class citizens in a way. We're not treated with the respect that we deserve. I mean, look, to take somebody to the track is a lot of money. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Go to Saratoga on Belmont Stakes Day or any day. The admission, they charge you a ridiculous amount for a beer and a hot dog. But before you know it, it's like a few $100s.
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, why should it be that expensive? They're making money on the bets. It's, you want to do stuff to get people back into the game, because they're not doing a great job of that for a long time.
No, it's been a problem for a long time, and it seems like there is there can be sometimes frustration from players that there seems like there's a lack of interest in trying to fix it. I mean, and improving, I think the gambling product is sort of central to that, not just creating better field sizes and things like that, but also just giving breaks to the players, and not only basing whether you get advantages based on the amount of money you bet. That's not bringing new people in the door. So we don't have to go into that whole discussion about that's we could do a whole separate podcast on that.
So,
but I totally agree with you that it's you want to make new fans, and you get them in the door through showing them this is a product that's fun to wager on.
So we're both handicappers. We're both professional handicappers.
Mm-hmm.
And I am very interested to know, and I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that know the name David Aragona, and your work is greatly respected. I know we've talked about, when you did your analysis on the, NYRA website, that it doesn't exist anymore. And I'm sure a lot of people miss it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I miss it. I mean, I like reading it. I like reading my fellow handicappers that I respect to see their work. I know Brad Thomas, a guy that is my best friend, for years. You know who he is. You grew up in the Jersey circuit.
Mm-hmm.
Brad is a legend.
Yep.
Brad loved your work. Lots of people love your work. What I'm going to ask you is the form. Okay. Friday's opening day Saratoga was released Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
I worked all day Sunday. I want to jump on it, right? I like the advanced stuff so I can get a jump on it and not have to be so pressured. So I print out the form. I happen to print out, I like the paper, but I have the computer next to me and formulator open. But I want to know, David Aragona prints out. Do you print the form out, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Got it right here.
Print it out. So I want to know, from the minute you print out the racing form, there's an excitement. Opening day. You probably printed it out Saturday night, I presume?
Yep, of course.
Okay. So now it's on your desk.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know your process from start to finish.
So obviously, first I go through and number all the horses, because you're printing it so early. There are no numbers on it, so I'll do that first because I want to do that with a clear head.
All numbers.
Yes.
Right.
And thank God entries are finally gone, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. That was such a headache, and that was terrible for the people betting on New York racing. So getting that out of the way, then I go through and I format my spreadsheet for making the morning line, because the first thing I have to do with this card is make a morning line before I think about my handicapping, because the morning lines are due before the handicapping analysis is due. So I'll go through and I use an Excel spreadsheet and I'll just format it so that I have every race in there. I like to make a spreadsheet for every single day that I can save, that I can kind of go back and reference, or go back and use it as like a fair odds comparison. That's getting into a different topic, but I have reasons for basically like formatting a separate spreadsheet for every day when I make the morning line. So I'll generate that for the card. So, all of that takes like about 15 minutes. And then I'll go through and I'll start to, go through race by race. Typically I'm going through an order. Sometimes if, I'm feeling like changing things up, I'll like start with the hardest race first. So I feel like I'm starting at night, I'm going to get exhausted. I'll make sure I start with the hard race so that I am fresh for it. But I'll basically go through, I'll start writing down some basic data from DRF and Timeform US. Those are the two major sets of past performances that I use when I do this work. I know that there are other PPs out there that influence the betting, but you can't go over everything. You'd run out of time. So those are the two that I use because I like to have two sets of speed figures just so I can sort of compare one to the other. And thankfully, Craig Mulkowski, who makes the Timeform US speed figures, I think does a great job. And I think it's always significant when he has a slight disagreement with Beyer. So I'll go through and I'll sort of make comparisons, writing down all of the Timeform US speed figures next to the Beyers. So I can sort of have that speed figure comparison in front of me for every single horse on the day. So that's what I kind of set up my PPs in that way. So I have all of that ready to go. And then I'll start going through and basically, going through like basic handicapping of what somebody would do to come up with their picks. Like I look at the pace of the race, I look at the running styles, I start watching some trips, not so much doing it so I can figure out who I like in the race, but I'm trying to do it to figure out, where the public is going to go. Because there are certain factors that you notice over time really move the tote board. So I'll watch a trip and I'll think to myself, okay, I see this horse had a trip. Is this a trip that other people are going to pick up on? Was this obvious trouble or was this subtle trouble? And if it's subtle trouble, maybe it's something I file away that I want to use. But if it's obvious trouble, then it's something that I'm going to say to myself, well, everyone's going to see this and it's going to be built into the price. So that's a factor that I'm going to build into the morning line. So I kind of go through the race and highlight things like that, jockey trainer combinations that get bet, sometimes just jockeys that get bet. I mean, these days they bet everything Flavien Prat and Irad Ortiz was riding. So, I'll go through, I'll mark up all those things. And when I get to a point where I feel like I've, digested all of the major information around a race, then I'll kind of go through and I'll look over every horse and I'll say, okay, what really jumps out at me? What are the factors that really are going to move this horse into favoritism? So I'll try to identify the favorite, and then I'll survey what's around that horse and just try to come up with a price that I think the favorite's going to be. So I'll put that, favored price, my first guess at it, into the spreadsheet. And then I'll kind of go through horse by horse and basically put down the odds that I think that they're going to be relative to the favorite. And sometimes I'll finish that process and the odds are going to add up to 150 points. I'll realize, okay, I got the price on the favorite wrong because the ratios are not right. I'm using too many points for this race. So I'll kind of have to go through and tinker with it and adjust. But that's basically how it goes. I try to, compile all the information and then establish, the relative amounts of support that I think the horses are going to take, and then just sort of tailoring that to the amount of points that I have to use for each race. So, sometimes the process of just, digesting all the information takes a lot of time. Sometimes, figuring out what the ratios of how the horses are going to get bet is what takes a lot of time. Sometimes it's clear who's the favorite's going to be, but then sorting out the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth choices, that's really tough. And it takes a lot of agonizing over, very minor factors to see what is going to become a major factor to some people when they're handicapping the race. So that basically covers the morning line portion of it. And that's the first thing that I do when I get the PPs.
How long does it take, this whole process, just to come up with your morning line? Approximately how long?
It totally depends on the complexion of the race. Like let's say it's the winter at Aqueduct and all the horses in the race, let's say it's a claiming race, and they're all horses that I'm already familiar with that just ran last month, and I know the races already, and let's say I have trip notes on those horses already, and I kind of know the lay of the land and how they're going to compete against each other. That's a line that can sometimes come together in 10 to 15 minutes when I put everything together. Then you got a race like, let's say, I was just doing the second race at Saratoga on Friday, which is a turf sprint for 2-year-olds, maiden special weight, where almost everyone's a first-time starter.
Right, and, I got that up.
Yeah, and that's a lot of work because you got to go through and look up all the pedigrees, got to figure out which connections can win with these types of horses, jockey trainer connections that take money in these types of races. And then I do the extra layer of going through and watching as many workout videos as I can, because with these races, there are often a lot of videos of these horses training in the mornings that are available either on First TV or on the Kentucky Thoroughbred Horsemen's Association website. So I'll go through and I'll watch every workout video that's available for these 2-year-olds. And then I'll try to put all the information together. And that's a lot of information to digest. But just looking up all that information can take a lot of time. I mean, those races take me well over half an hour.
So to do an entire morning line before you actually do your handicapping, I presume it probably takes you, like on a Saratoga card, a couple hours.
Oh, yeah. A Saratoga card with like 11 races like this one?
Yeah.
Over 4 hours. 4 hours at minimum.
Right.
Just to do the morning line. Yeah.
So have you done the morning line for Friday?
Only the first few races. I've gone through and
race.
Took
so race, like, did you do like race 3?
I could say race 1 is completed if you want to talk about race 1.
Let me just look at race 1.
The others are preliminary, so I'm not ready to talk about them yet.
No, I'm just going to see who I would make the favorite myself on the morning line. I think the public is going to gravitate to Founders as a slight favorite. Just because people love that last number, like the figure, right? The horse is in sharp form. It's offer for, I'm just guessing, like, if I was going to make a line in that race, I'd probably make him 5-2.
So I can talk through this a little bit. I mean, I know a lot of people watching might not have the PPs in front of them, so I'll just sort of talk about it.
This is going to air after this race is long gone. So
sure. So the horse that you're talking about, Founders, he has the highest last out buyer in the race of 90. So that's obviously going to move the board. I mean, gone are the days when the buyer speed figures were an edge. Everyone has the buyers now, and everyone knows that the horse with the highest buyer might be the most likely winner. So that's a horse that definitely is going to take money. But, I look at a horse like Fact, the number 4, and say, okay, well, this horse is trained by Will Walton. All his horses take money because it seems like he does nothing but win races. He's ridden by Flavien Prat. They love to bet Prat in New York, especially these days. And then the other thing I do as a line maker, which I don't necessarily think about so much from a handicapping perspective, but you have to think about this as a line maker, is how does the public bet this horse? And you look at the prior races, and Fact is just a horse that takes money every single time. He's always a short price. I mean, he's always hovering around even money or odds on, even when it doesn't look like his PPs justify that. And he's coming off a win. So I think to myself, okay, maybe Founders looks a little better based on the recent speed figures, but Fact just has all these things that are going to attract support his way. So I think Fact is going to be a slight favorite, and I made Founders the second choice. So
2-1, 5-2.
I went 5-2, 3-1, but that's how I differentiate those two horses.
Okay, so now your line is done for the entire card. Now, you used to do you still do closer looks?
No, I don't write those anymore.
Okay.
They have some other handicappers writing those. So for DRF, for these cards, obviously I technically make the morning line for DRF. I never have been an employee of the New York Racing Association. I'll clear that up for some people who don't understand that distinction. But DRF has a partnership with NYRA where we provide the morning line to them. But in terms of creating for DRF's website and their paper, all I do these days, now that I shut down the free analysis on the NYRA site, all I do for DRF is I do the picks that appear in the form and next to the past performances. So they have their old handicapper terms. I'm usually Hermes when it comes to the picks for DRF, but that's what I do for every single day on the NYRA circuit. So all 46 days of the Saratoga meet, I'll have my picks in there.
So not writing that analysis up saves you a couple hours at least.
Oh yeah, that would take a couple hours to write.
Yeah, so you got a little freshening there.
Yeah. Obviously, I did that for a long time. I started doing that back in... I was doing it back in 2015 for Timeform US before Timeform US got reacquired by Daily Racing Form. I had been writing that exact same analysis even before that when I had my own blog. Some people might remember those early days when, if you started following me back in the early 2010s, I was blogging about racing before anybody wanted to hire me in racing. And I was doing the same thing all the way back then. So I've been writing about the racing in that way for a long time. And, there have been a lot of other responsibilities that have been put on me since then. I do a lot of videos these days for Daily Racing Forum's YouTube channel. And, to be honest, it was just getting to be too much. I was feeling like I couldn't put forth the best of myself with everything I was doing. So something had to get cut out. And the Naira thing, we have been providing them content for a long time, and it just kind of made sense to dial that back for a while, especially with Saratoga on the horizon. And I was going to be stretched as thin as I always am for Saratoga. So it just felt like the right time to wrap that up, especially given how long I've been doing it. But look, I'm going to miss it. And I've had a ton of people reach out to me saying how much they're going to miss it. And that really means a lot. And a lot of people just saying how much they learned about handicapping from reading. Like you were saying, I mean, I'm no Andy Beyer. I don't have any illusions about that. I mean, I haven't done anything groundbreaking. I've just kind of followed in the footsteps of people that have done this better than I have before me. But I do appreciate that a lot of people liked the content that I was producing and learned from it.
So David, I know your first major fan.
Who's that?
So he was right when you started your blog. He called me and he goes, "I'm following this guy. I like him." And he was a friend of me and the source, Paul Kornman, right? He owned a piece of Win, old timer, right? So his nickname, everybody has a nickname that I'm around, right, in the game. He was the groaner. And
where'd that come from?
Because he groans all the time,
okay,
like no matter what. But he doesn't groan when he was cashing a few tickets from you and your blog. He was actually very happy. So he called me and he goes, "I got this guy. I'm following him." And this was right at the beginning when you started the blog. So it was the groaner who actually was like one of your first people and released your name to the masses, to our little circle,
Yeah. I should mention, because I was remiss not to earlier. I've told this story before on other podcasts, but I do want to give a shout out to my friend Andy Serling, who was really the first person that reached out to me that I was kind of starstruck by, and he said "I've read your blog. You do a good job. I followed you on Twitter. I want to meet you." And he was kind of the first person that gave me an opportunity in the industry. And, I was reminiscing about Aqueduct earlier. I do want to mention, some of my best memories at Aqueduct are just hanging out in the offices downstairs with Andy. And he introduced me to so many people behind the scenes. I didn't want to leave that out because I kind of forgot to mention that earlier when I was talking about some of my best memories of Aqueduct.
You're not the first person Andy helped in the game. Maggie,
of course,
Maggie Wolfendale.
Yep.
When Jan Rushton left, and Andy played a big part in getting Maggie into the paddock previews and kind of mentoring her, and look, he's paid back. He grew up and he's paid it forward, and he was one of the, I would be remiss to say that in the 80s, he was a young kid and would hang out, with our group. And so he's another one that goes back, we talk about, Harvey Pack's office. That was in the bowels of Aqueduct. That was, Howie Tesher, you might have heard the name, would be there. The source, the Whammer, guy named the Whammer, Andy, me. We kind of rotate out of, they called him Daddy. He was Daddy. Harvey was Daddy, right? And we would all kind of rotate out of that office. And we all got gigs on his show, we Dave Litvin was a regular. I was a guest several times. It was a beautiful time. It was just a beautiful time.
Well, that's the legacy that you're talking about. And I know people have a lot of opinions about Andy Serling, but I mean, he wants that show and the productions and the horse racing industry at large to have the best talent that it can doing what we do. So yeah, he's given a lot of people opportunities over the years.
He's he's a New Yorker. What's on his lung is on his tongue. Right. So he speaks.
Going back to those handicapping seminars at Zeros, he was even as a kid, he was always my favorite guest because he had a strong opinion. He would go toe to toe battling with Harvey. Sometimes he would show up and obviously be in a bad mood, and you always knew you were going to get a show. So he was always my favorite guest. I was excited when I would see him like walk up to the set, and also he would give you those like instructions about how to watch a race, and I would just love to go to the replay center and learn from him. So yeah, for me it was like just a total moment of being starstruck when he reached out to me and I got to meet him for the first time.
There's no boredom. There's no boredom when you watch him. I mean,
totally.
It's complete animation.
No.
I mean, it's just as animated as you can be.
And people like that have strong opinions. They're going to be polarizing personalities, and some people are not going to like him at all, and that's just fine. I mean, you know, when you have a lot of strong opinions, you have to know that some people are just not going to appreciate your style.
And you're taking a position.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're having the guts to take a position,
Yep.
and he knows he's going to wear the dunce cap every once in a while.
Yep.
But when he's right, he's right. So we're not right.
That's what it is. That's what it is to be a horse player. I mean, right. you put your opinion on the line, you put your money on the line, and sometimes you're right and sometimes you're wrong. And when you're wrong, you just I mean, sure, you can say, oh, it was the jockey's fault, it was the trader's fault, this was fixed. I mean, if you're somebody that does that on the regular, you're not really learning from your mistakes. You know, sometimes you just have to say, okay, I had a strong opinion and I was dead wrong about this one, and I'll learn from it in the future. But you know, I'm gonna still have my convictions going forward, because that's what you have to do to make money at this game.
When you're when you're watching the races, do you take your notes in Formulator, or do you have a notebook and do the old-fashioned way?
I don't have a separate notebook. I've never done that. But I do have my print PPs. And so I basically use these as like a notepad as I'm going through the races. So I'll watch a lot of the replays and I'll start just taking notes like over the form. So I'll watch a lot of trips and I'll start writing about them on here. And, you know, when I won't transcribe everything, every note that I take in writing into Formulator, but the ones that I think are going to be useful, I'll put in there, and I'll put some other data points in there that I observe. So yeah, I'll put a decent number of notes into Formulator. I'm not like diligently going through and notating the trip for every single horse and every single race, though. I don't have the time for that. But I am as I go through, I'm trying to leave some, you know, I'm leaving some breadcrumbs to myself that I can use in the future.
Do you put, there's a section where you can put track bias?
Oh yeah, I use that the most of all.
I would presume you put that in there because you don't want to miss a bias track. I mean, to me, that's one of the most important thing, you know, or a fast pace.
Yeah.
Or a slow pace.
Yeah. And most of those notes honestly get taken over the winter, or at least they did at Aqueduct, where the weather changes and, you know, sometimes snow or rain or track freezing and thawing. You would just see a lot of track biases. And that was one of the edges that you had at Aqueduct, is just following those through the winter. You see a little bit less of that through the summer months. I mean, sometimes the turf courses, when they move the rail settings around, you'll get biases on those courses. So I'll try to notate those, but it's harder because, you know, they run races on so many different surfaces now that sometimes you only get 3 or 4 dirt races a day, or 3 turf races or 2 turf races on the inner and 2 on the outer. So it's hard to be sure that there's a bias when you only have a sample size of 2, 3, or 4. So, you know, one of the great things about Aqueduct in the winter is you would get 8, 9, 10 dirt races, and you could have some certainty that there was or wasn't a bias. And I'm happy that NYRA is going to, you know, use still one surface during the winter time. When they go to Belmont, it'll be synthetic, but there are biases on synthetic surfaces too. I've done a little handicapping on turf way, and you see biases show up sometimes. So I think a lot of those same tools will work there. We'll just have to see how that surface plays.
With all the work that you do you bet?
Oh yeah, of course.
I mean, like, what types of bets do you like to make? Like, what's your strategies?
It depends on the kind of race. It depends on the day. It depends on how strong my opinions are. You know, I would say that win bets for me are the bread and butter. If I have a strong opinion, I'm going to bet that horse to win. I think that's a mistake a lot of players make, where they decide ahead of time that they've got to go after the pick 5, or they got to hit the pick 4. And sometimes they'll really like a horse, but they'll spend all their budget on the pick 5 or the pick 4 and forget to just make a simple win bet on the horse. So I always like to start with the win bet and kind of build from there. it depends on how the race looks. Sometimes I'll think that there's a horse that's a decent price, it's going to offer value that I have a strong opinion about, and there's maybe an opinion I have against the favorite in the race, and there are others that I think are in a fair price range. So in those types of situations, I'll play a lot around with exactas and trifectas, trying to key the horses that I like in different positions to make a score that way. I will play pick fives, pick fours at times. Not as much as I did, because like early in my betting days, like an early 20-year-old, when I really started to spend a lot more gambling on the races, I would just go after those pick fives and pick fours, honestly, because that's what the talking heads told you to do. But through a lot of trial and error and losing a lot of money betting those wagers, I've kind of altered my strategy over time and kind of going back to the basics of doing more win betting or straight, intra-race betting, trying to go after trifectas and things like that. I do go after the pick fives in certain situations, but it's not something that I feel like I have to do with every sequence, because your opinions don't dictate that the pick five is a smart wager all the time. So I try to make sure that I have a set of opinions that really are going to fit into the type of pick five that is going to work for me and my budget.
Will you bet a favorite if you made the horse, like, say you made the horse 8-5 and the horse is 5-2 or 2-1?
Mm-hmm.
Would you make a win bet on that horse, even though that horse is a short price, but he's a bigger price than you have a good opinion on him? You think you made him 8-5. He's now 2-1, 5-2. I would say that's value if you really like that horse. Would you take that?
The answer to that question, I would say, is complicated, because as you know, there are a lot of factors at play here. So I would ask, what is the situation here? Why did the horse drift up to 5-2? Let's say it's like a Saratoga race, and I made the morning line at 8-5, and let's say the DRF Clocker report comes out, and the horse has a C workout. Okay, I could say to myself, well, the horse is 5-2 because everyone sees he's not working well. So maybe that's a horse I want to stay away from, or maybe I don't care about the workout and I think it's value. Maybe I watch the workout and I disagree with the clock report. So I want to know what the reason is why the horse drifted in one direction or the other. If I don't know the reason and the horse drifted up, then I'm going to say, well, let's say it's a track that's not NYRA where the CAW betting is restricted. Let's say it's clear that the horse is going to be 5-2 when the late money comes in. Then I'll say, all right, maybe the CAW teams know something that I don't. And maybe because the money is very smart these days. And if a horse is not taking the money you expect it to, you feel like there is some reason there. Maybe it's just not something that you can know with all of the information that you have at your disposal. So I try to tread cautiously. I don't want to pretend that I don't want to think that I'm smarter than I really am, because this game is hard to beat. And there are very smart players out there that know more than you do at times. So if I have a reason that I think that other people aren't privy to for why the betting is going in a specific direction, I'm going to bet with confidence. Maybe I know that I watched a trip and I saw something that others didn't, then fine. That's my observation, and I'm going to be confident in it. But if things are not shaping up the way that I expected them to, especially doing the morning lines and having a strong expectation of what I think where the betting is going to go, and it's going in a different direction, then I kind of have to take a step back and wonder why. And you can't always come up with the answers.
At what point do you make that bet? With a minute to go, with 5 minutes to go? When do you like to make that bet? Any bet.
I like to wait. I do bet relatively late. I'm not somebody that feels like I have to bet at the last second, because you're never going to bet after the CIWs do. You're going to get shut out. But I do look at a lot of double and pick three will pays these days, more pick three will pays than the doubles, because it seems like the CIWs bet a lot more into that pool. So I do try to get a sense of where I think the money is going to go in the end, so that I'm not surprised by any late odds changes. So if I feel like I know where the money's going to go, I don't always wait for the late odds change. I just kind of I bet within 5 minutes to post, kind of expecting where the board is going to end up. So yeah, I'm generally betting like within the last 5 minutes, but I don't feel like I always have to wait until the last second, because I do try to do some work looking at will pays to expect where the money is going to go. And I will say that is one of the benefits of betting at the NYRA tracks. And people will call me a shill for saying this. Like I said, I don't work for NYRA. I partner with them. I do the morning line for them. They're not paying me any money. But what I will say about betting NYRA is that you're restricting these CAWs in the win pool. You don't have to wait until the last 5 minutes. I mean, you generally know what the price is going to be. Things start to settle before they do at other tracks. So I can bet a little earlier when I'm playing NYRA than I can some other racetracks.
Yeah, well, we won't go into the CAWs. That's a whole
No, it's a
nother,
different
that's a
topic. I
whole
just,
nother
yeah.
show.
Mhm.
I know how you feel about him, and you know how I feel about it.
Yeah.
So we'll move on to something else rather than tackle that.
Mhm.
So is you've been betting and playing the horses now? How many years? You started when you were 13. You're now what? How old are you? In
30 to 39.
Okay, so 26 years,
Mhm.
right? But you've been probably betting about 10 years, seriously, right? 10, 15 years.
I would say I was betting a decent amount like after college in my early to mid 20s. I probably wasn't being as smart about it as I should have been because you make a lot of dumb mistakes when
How,
you're that age. But yeah, I would say I've been betting, at a similar level to what I do today or for the past, 12, 15 years.
is it harder to make money now than it was in the past?
Yes, the simple answer is yes. For me, I sometimes wonder if that's all because of the landscape. I won't go into the CAWs again, but I do wonder if some of it is also because of the role that I have. And look, I mean, it's just a fact. Doing the job that I was doing, I would have a lot of people tailing my bets. When I put my stuff out there for free, a lot of people would bet what I bet. And you could see if I liked a 10-1 shot in the 5th race and a 10-1 shot in the 6th race, the double with those two horses it's going to pay half of what it would if I wasn't doing what I do. I see that all the time. So I would say that the job that I've done over the past 10 years or so, I think that's made it a little tougher for me to bet and win, especially on the NYRA races.
I could see that.
Specifically.
I can definitely see that.
Specifically on the NYRA races. But at large, yes, it's gotten harder because the money is way more sophisticated than it used to be. So there's a lot more to think about when you're placing a wager.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, we had angles that, not many people, it wasn't public knowledge
Yep.
like it is today. You're not, those so-called value bets are far and few between. When was the last time you made a serious bet on a horse that paid $40? I mean,
Yep.
it doesn't, that's like Christmas,
Yep.
it doesn't come very often.
Yep.
So the last thing I wanted to talk to you about is now that Aqueduct's done, we're going into Saratoga. We'll be there, the longest meet ever. We'll be there till Labor Day. Then we're at Belmont, the new Belmont, the modern age Belmont Park, right? Good wire, good Wi-Fi wherever you go. Clean bathrooms, clean seats, no bird shit on the seats, everything clean, modern. But now we're going to be faced with the winter.
Yep.
And we're going to be faced with the first time in New York that we're going to be racing on tapetum, a synthetic surface. Now, there's different synthetic surfaces.
Yep.
But tapetum, I think that Michael Dickinson created that. And it's kind of, a standard surface now. People gravitate to using that. You're going to have Woodbine horses coming in. The purses are going to be very good. So it'll be interesting what happens with Turfway Park during the winter. But I'm already thinking about how do you tackle that as a handicapper? I've heard more people than not say, I ain't playing it. It's too hard, it's too much of a mystery, too random. too much of a learning curve, right? Um, what's your approach going to be? Like, how confident are you going to be? How are you going to change your handicapping methodology?
I would say that it's going to be a challenge, and it's going to be hard to have a lot of confidence because it's all new. Sure, some of us have handicapped synthetic surfaces before, but as we've seen, the synthetic at Gulfstream doesn't play the same way as the synthetic at Woodbine, doesn't play the same way as the synthetic at Turfway. Even though all three are Tapeta, they're in different climates and they play differently, and that's how synthetics work. So it can be very much learning the quirks of the surface that's been installed in the area that it's been installed. So you're going to have to learn that over time at Belmont. But what I will say about that is everyone else is going to be at the same disadvantage that you are, including the computer teams. So they don't have the data either. I mean, they know how other synthetic tracks have played, but their algorithms might not be firing as efficiently as they would at Churchill Downs on the dirt. So it's going to be a challenge, but I think it's also going to be an opportunity if you make some observations that you can find out are working or turning out to be fruitful before others do, then maybe you have an advantage. So to me, it's an exciting challenge because I'm going to watch a lot of races. I'm going to do a lot of trip handicapping, and I'm going to try to figure out if there's an edge to be had for as long as it lasts. You aren't often presented with situations in racing these days where there's something new and everyone is at a disadvantage because they all have to learn at the same time. Now, of course, the computer teams are going to learn the fastest, but they might not be fully up to speed the way they are on other tracks right away. So I think there could be a window of opportunity there to actually have some room to operate with an edge. I'll be interested to see how that plays out. Honestly, I'm more concerned about making the morning lines because I won't know what to do. I won't know how people are going to assess these turf to dirt moves or the Woodbine to Belmont moves. That's all going to be new. So I think the lines could be a little off when Belmont starts with the synthetic. But from a betting standpoint, I think it's kind of exciting.
I think it's the way I look at it. There's two ways I look at it. As a daily handicapper, making picks every day for every race and making wagering strategies like I do, I'm going to have to tread lightly, like as far as my strength of conviction.
Mm-hmm.
I may be more conservative in the wagers.
Mm-hmm.
I may be waiting for that opportunity where I find a horse that I really feel I have an edge with, like the old days, where, okay, we've kind of treaded water. I'm not doing that great, not doing bad in my picks, not winning or losing. But then there's going to be a play that I would indicate to the public that I have a really strong conviction on and why. And I think that's the edge as a gambler, that you have to be patient. You have to do your work. The harder you work, I feel in this situation, the better the outcome is going to be. Yeah. I don't think you can fluff through this. And in the end, you'll get buried. I think it's a smaller amount of bets and bigger bets on those opinions. And they might be, so for instance, like doing a sheet, I give like 3 crystal ball best bets a day. That's not that difficult on a 10 or 11 race card. On an 8 race card, I might give 2, not 3. On a synthetic card in the winter, I might give 1. I might give 1. I'm not going to give 3 because I'm going to play it like, let's lay low. Let's learn the game together. Tread lightly. If I was making a 1-star play as my lowest bet and I had up to a 4-star play, most of my plays would be 1-star action plays. But then I would start, as time went on, and I had something to latch onto because I had a reason.
Yep.
That's the edge.
Yep.
I think I will cash fewer bets but bigger scores.
Hmm.
And I think
Yeah.
I like the idea of we're all on the same playing field. Let's see who does the better job. And
Hmm.
that better job equates to how hard you work.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that paradigm
Yeah.
because now it's doesn't matter how hard you work. There's too many other factors that reduce our prices.
Going back to that example you gave earlier, where let's say I made a horse 8-5 and it drifts up to 5-2. If that's a synthetic race of the new Belmont, I'm going to say, who cares? I mean, nobody else knows what they're doing. So if I think 5-2 is value, then I'm going to go for it. If I have confidence in that opinion, I'm not going to believe that the other money out there is smarter than I am, because everyone's learning this. So you kind of have to throw some of those rules out the window. But like you said, the confidence level across the board is going to be a little bit lower, because you don't have this whole volume of past circumstances that you can rely on. You're going to be learning in real time and gathering data in real time. But look, there's still races, and the handicapping principles use it other tracks, use it places like Turfway. They're still going to apply. You just kind of have to learn the quirks of the surface and how horses coming in from different circuits are going to handle it.
I also feel, that if you do pedigree work, that there are synthetic pedigrees, just
Yeah.
like turf pedigrees.
Yep.
I mean, it's wet track pedigrees.
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying to learn that this year about what types of horse I might claim
Mm-hmm.
for synthetic. I would like to I'll be very interested before I retire, Walk With Me, who has some synthetic pedigree.
Mm-hmm.
That how does she work over the
Yeah.
surface? Does she have a pedigree that like, okay, I'll ask the trainer, what was her stride like?
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, did she move fluently over it?
Yep.
Like I have a horse, just like a first time starter running soon.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't work as well on the dirt as she does on the turf.
Mm-hmm.
She's like a daisy cutter on the
Mm-hmm.
turf. She just digs in. She has a fluid stride. The same thing, you're going to see that when they transfer over. We know we can look at a dirt replay and then we can see a synthetic work, and hey, this horse just glides over it.
Yeah.
There's little edges that
Mm-hmm.
we're going to have the harder we work, in
Yep.
my opinion.
Yep. I agree with that. And as you start to see things that are working and things that aren't working, you have to make notes of them and apply that knowledge moving forward. So yeah, it's going to be a challenge, but I think if you apply yourself to it, it could be a fun challenge and maybe a profitable one.
Where do you see this game in 10 years?
Ooh, that's a heavy
Where do you
question
see
to end with.
yeah, just what comes to mind? Like what do you see? I have an idea, but what's your idea?
I think that we're going to see the game likely concentrated around a few hubs around the country. I don't think it's going to continue to exist at the top level from coast to coast the way that it has. It's just things don't seem to be moving in that direction. And I really hope I'm wrong about that. And I would love to see California racing make a comeback and thrive into the future. But, I think we all see the trends and where things are moving. But you do see some little pockets of hope around there, and some places that are trying to do the right thing. So I think we're going. I mean, there are people out there that they'll say racing is going to be gone in 5 to 10 years. I don't agree with that. I think we're going to see racing continue to grow and thrive in certain areas. But the game is going to continue to change. And I know that there are some people out there that are resistant to change, but you kind of have to roll with it. If you want this game to continue to exist, you can't just say, I want things to be the way that they were 20 years ago, because they're never going to go back to what it was. So, things are changing in New York right now. I'm excited for the changes. I'm excited to see how things develop, but I'm just glad that things are changing and that there are at least some people out there that are looking towards the future, because I think you have to do that if we're going to continue.
I think you're right about the concentration of racetracks.
Mm-hmm.
You have the Churchill, and you have Naira, right?
Yep.
Magna, I don't know what they're doing. Who knows? But the whole thing that's important is purses, because it's so expensive as an owner to own horses,
Hmm.
especially in New York. And Naira is doing a really good job at incentivizing, the incentives of coming in the winter, raising the purses, right? That Churchill purses are great. Even Colonial the
Hmm.
purses are decent there. So you're going to see a smaller concentration of racetracks, I think, better quality racing,
Hmm.
you know, um, and I think racing will go on. It's just
Yep.
going to go on in a different form.
Hmm.
That's it. Racing will always be there.
Yeah. And look, from our perspective, from the gambling perspective, if things contract a little bit and racing gets more interesting, even in the short term, that's a positive. I mean, I know it's look, racing is not going to make the comeback and go get to where it was in the 60s, 60s, 70s, 50s. I mean, we're just not going back there. So yes, it's sad that we're losing a lot of these racetracks, but this contraction, it's just it was inevitable. I mean, that's just the way life is these days. I mean,
Yeah.
everyone isn't always watching the same things. Our interests are more niche, and things can survive as niche sports or niche interests, but they have to contract to the right level to support the fandom that's out there. And I just hope that the industry supports the fandom at this level and supports the customers on the gambling side to make it a more appealing wagering product, because that's where there's an opportunity for growth. I think there is an opportunity to get more people interested in gambling on this game. And like I said, I like a lot of the steps that Naira has taken towards this front. And I just hope more of the industry follows suit.
I wish they can get the young David Aragona, the young Michael Kipnis to want to get into the game, like their fathers taking their children.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have the biggest battle with racing is sports betting,
Yeah.
because people want instant gratification. They can bet anything, anytime in the middle of the night. Then you have Polymarket. You have, these different wagers that are competing against the wagering dollars. That's the toughest thing.
Mm-hmm.
Kalshi, the prediction markets, they're growing and growing and growing. Those are more for younger people, you
Yeah.
know, and so I worry about when all of us, when those people we saw at Aqueduct yesterday, yeah, you saw some young people,
Mm-hmm.
but how do you get them to come on other days? But the regulars, when they die, how are they replaced?
Mm-hmm.
That's the key.
Yeah.
And we won't talk about, the only thing I want to say about the ADWs, it's almost a necessary evil that they built, because you take their dollars out, that's a ton of money out of the pools. And
Yeah.
then it's a domino effect. The purses go down, the owners leave. What happens to the breeding? So there's a lot of issues that have to be very delicately managed,
Mm-hmm.
but I have to say I am excited about going to the new Belmont, seeing what they did, and they're being progressive. And what else could you want? I mean, you got to be a forward thinker, and they're
Yeah.
trying. They
Mm-hmm.
got young people that are involved. You have the commentators. You have the bet patrol. They walk around trying. They're trying, and that's all we can hope for. We
Mm-hmm.
hope that they succeed. But I appreciate your time. It was a great interview, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. I think people are going to get to, I don't know how many podcasts you do like this and how many people really get to see you in an interview like this, but you are well respected in the industry by many people. And hopefully we can get this out here and people really know what's behind who is David Aragona.
Yeah, I appreciate you setting this up. It was a good conversation, and I hope some people don't mind that we went really in the weeds on a few things, but I know some people out there might find that interesting and helpful. So this was good. It was a great conversation.
Thanks a lot, David.